Let's face an uncomfortable truth. The great man, the one who dares to venture, who dares to dream big, who dares to burn his life for a mission, is rarely loved in the way the world romanticizes love. His story is not a sweet love song. It is a harsh epic. You see, modern society constantly celebrates greatness, extraordinary ambition, but when a man truly dares to live that way, dares to step out of the comfort zone, to pursue a mission larger than himself, he becomes a threat. Not everyone says this out loud. Not everyone is willing to admit that most women, even though they may admire a great man from afar, when it comes to love, they choose safety, comfort, control, because loving a man with a grand mission means learning how to stand at the sidelines, learning how to endure the loneliness when he disappears into his own world, learning how to accept that you are not the center of his universe. And this is the quiet tragedy of men who dare to live big. They are not loved for the path they choose. 1. Great men cannot be controlled. They are not easy to love, and they do not stay in the safe zone. A great man is not someone who is easy to love. He doesn't appear when called, doesn't offer comfort just because someone else feels insecure, and certainly doesn't bend himself to fit the expectations of a normal relationship. He doesn't belong to comfort. He belongs to dangerous paths, to the roads no one dares to walk, to the places where ordinary men stand back and retreat. Here's a truth many people are afraid to face. A man who carries a grand ambition will always be a threat to those who live by predictability, those who want to be the center of someone's world. He doesn't love like others do. His love, if it exists, will never be the thing that makes him stop. It will be something swept along in the burning journey he's on. Look at Napoleon, a strategic genius, a symbol of power, and yet betrayed by the woman who once swore to stand by his side. Not because he didn't love, but because he didn't stay. He wasn't the man who would sit quietly at home, speak softly each day, tolerate petty emotional conflicts, or pause in the middle of an unfolding vision just to comfort someone who felt left behind. Great men do not orbit around women. They do not need to be loved in order to feel whole. And that is what makes them impossible to control. Their presence, if it's there, is voluntary, not born out of fear of losing someone, and certainly not driven by the need for validation. Modern society celebrates success as long as the man stays soft, agreeable, and not too far removed from emotional expectations. But great men aren't like that. They are not soft. They don't tolerate delay. They don't spend hours talking about feelings. They go and do what most people never dared to imagine. This is not an excuse for coldness. It is a truth about those who choose to live for something greater than personal emotion. Yes, they can love, but they will never let love slow them down. They are willing to sacrifice personal comfort in pursuit of something far larger. And because of that, they are often misunderstood, abandoned, or simply labeled as someone who doesn't know how to love. But no, they do know how to love. They just love freedom more. They love their mission more. And they will never let anyone, even the woman they once loved deeply, pull them away from the path they must walk. Because to them, the most brutal fate is not being alone. It's living a life out of alignment with who they truly are. 2. Women choose stability over greatness because a man on a mission cannot be controlled. There's a truth few dare to say aloud. Women often don't choose the man who's pursuing a great mission, not because they don't admire him, but because they can't control him. A great man lives by his own orbit. He doesn't stay just to text every night. He doesn't rearrange his plans to suit emotions. He doesn't pause everything because of an outburst of anger. He isn't heartless, but he prioritizes something few truly understand, his mission. And that alone makes women feel sidelined, makes them feel unsafe. An ordinary woman doesn't choose a storm. She chooses a roof. She doesn't pick the man who keeps her wondering where he'll go today, what challenge he'll take on next, or which special date he'll forget. She chooses the one who's predictable, reachable, the one she can soften with a glance or a sigh. A man chasing greatness cannot be held back by guilt or tears. He doesn't halt his journey just to make his partner smile for an evening. He knows the value of time, of strategy, of every step forward. And that, while admirable, makes him hard to love. Women often choose stability over greatness because stability can be hugged, talked to, managed. Greatness, it's lonely, it's cold, It's not gentle like in the movies. And that is why a man who lives for his mission is often alone in love. Not because he lacks the capacity for it, but because he lacks someone brave enough to walk beside him, because not everyone is strong enough to love a man who doesn't need to be held back, only to be understood. 3. Napoleon is the ultimate example. A man strong in the world but fragile in love and betrayed. Napoleon was not only a brilliant general, a master strategist, but also a living symbol of the bitter paradox faced by men who pursue greatness. Iron on the outside, shattered within, he could command hundreds of thousands, overthrow empires across Europe, yet in front of the woman he loved, he was as small as a child. The love letters Napoleon wrote to Josephine were not the words of an emperor. They were the desperate confessions of a man who loved intensely, craving to be loved back with the same fire he gave. But the tragedy, Josephine didn't love him that way. While he was waging wars and building an empire, she stayed in Paris and betrayed him. The harsh truth is this: the greater a man is on the outside, the more fragile he often becomes when he loves. Not because he is weak, but because when he does choose to love, he loves completely. He doesn't hold back, he doesn't play games, he doesn't calculate. Napoleon commanded battlefields with cold precision, but love made him tremble. And Josephine's betrayal, it didn't just wound his heart, it shattered his trust, the trust of a man who dared to choose love when he could have chosen power instead. This is a lesson many men still had to learn today. Power cannot protect the heart, achievements don't guarantee loyalty, and the stronger a man appears outwardly, the more vulnerable he becomes inwardly. If he places his heart in the wrong hands, Napoleon did not lose on the battlefield. He lost in love, and he lost because he believed that greatness would naturally be loved. But he forgot, not everyone is big enough to truly love a great man. 4. Women don't love greatness, they love what they can control. They don't love truth, they love comfort. It may sound harsh, but this is a reality many men need to face. Women do not love greatness the way they claim to. They admire it, they even glorify it on social media. But in real life, they choose familiarity, safety, and predictability. A great man does not stand still. He's not easy to understand, not easy to hold on to, not coming home for dinner on time, and certainly not playing along with a pre-written script for love. He lives with the obsession to transcend himself, and that is what makes women, who are biologically programmed to seek security, feel unsafe. A man who is always there, texting every hour, checking in regularly, nodding to every need, he makes women feel loved according to social expectations. But the man who wakes up in the middle of the night to write a chapter, who goes silent for 2 days because he's chasing a deadline or building something bigger than himself, he's labeled as emotionally unavailable. Women don't love the truth that their man is out there battling the world, building something of real value. They love comfort more, sweet words, regular hugs, timely presence. And so, when they choose a man they can emotionally track, schedule around, and mentally hold in place, they feel it's easier, more stable. But that is not love for a great man. That is love for a formula. Greatness doesn't make it onto the list of what most women want in a man. They want to feel loved, understood, prioritized, things a man chasing vision may not be able to deliver daily. And so, they choose the man who can stay home every evening, not because he's better, but because he's more predictable, more keepable, and less threatening than a man who is on a path to become something bigger than love itself. 5. The great man is always misunderstood. Focus is seen as indifference, silence as coldness. A man pursuing his mission doesn't live like the majority. He can sit for hours staring at a plan, an idea, a number, while the woman beside him feels neglected, not because he doesn't love her, but because love isn't the center of his life. Focus, for him, is sacred. It's discipline, it's devotion, but to many women, it's perceived as indifference. His silence, the time to arrange his thoughts, to listen to his intuition, to solve a great problem, is mistaken for coldness, insensitivity, not listening. The great man is misunderstood because he doesn't operate on trivial emotions. He doesn't check his phone every 5 minutes. He doesn't need to hear your voice every night to sleep well. He needs someone who understands that there are moments he must disappear to prepare for a greater, stronger, more enduring presence. But society doesn't teach women this. They are taught that constant presence equals love, that continual attention is the proof of affection. So when faced with a man who pours his entire mind into his mission, they feel empty and then misjudge him. They call him distant, hard to understand, unconcerned. But in truth, he's busy creating something that they, too, will one day benefit from. Ironically, the more purpose-driven a man is, the more invisible he seems in love. The great man doesn't need to prove himself, but he also doesn't want to be condemned for his silence. He only hopes to be understood. That sometimes, the firmest kind of love is when he dares to temporarily vanish, to return with something far greater than a hug. That something is the future, the value, the ideal. 6. The great man does not bow, does not stop, and therefore becomes a threat to traditional relationships. The great man does not live to be loved, to be understood, or to be pleasing. He lives to accomplish something far greater than himself. And for that reason, he does not stop when hurt, does not falter when misunderstood, does not bend himself to fit the emotional mold that society imposes. It is precisely this that makes him dangerous, not because he intends to hurt anyone, but because he makes those around him feel out of control. Traditional relationships have long been built on compromise, on emotional prioritization, on mutual accommodation, but the man driven by mission does not operate that way. He cannot break his goal into pieces just to share quality time every evening. He cannot divert his heart from its orbit just to maintain peace in a quarrel. To many women, this is threatening because they cannot possess him as they have done with other men. They cannot shape his life, cannot bind him to stay still beside them, cannot make him pause to soothe their anxieties. Every time they arise, he does not give them control. And that, in the framework of traditional values, is unacceptable. So they begin to label him cold, irresponsible, emotionally distant. They say he does not walk alongside, does not nurture the relationship, does not connect deeply. But what they really want is not connection. They want emotional control. And when he refuses to give it, they grow afraid, because the great man, when he cannot be controlled by emotions, by pleas, or by softness, will always remain outside the ordinary game of love. He is not the ideal lover. He is a force, and those not strong enough to follow will call him cold, when in truth, he is simply moving toward a place few dare to tread. 7. Women say they love strength, but they choose the man they can control. The truth is, they don't choose who they admire, but who they can dominate. Women often say they love strength in a man. They long for someone with vision, backbone, and the power to lead. But in reality, the opposite is often true. They may admire such men, but when it comes time to choose someone to stay with, they often go for the one who makes them feel more comfortable, more secure, more in control. Why? Because a truly strong man is not easy to please. He has principles. He has his own time. He has an inner world no one can access unless he allows it. And that makes many women feel insecure. They don't want to be part of his journey. They want his entire journey to revolve around them. The man who is easy to control sets no boundaries. He responds quickly, constantly adjusts himself to keep the peace, to be loved, to not be left behind. And in that convenience, women feel powerful. They can guide him, shape him, and ultimately possess him. He doesn't challenge them, doesn't demand growth from them, doesn't push them to evolve to keep up. That makes him the safe choice. But here's the paradox. A woman can love a weak man, but she will never truly respect him. She may live with him, raise children with him, share a life with him, but deep down, she knows she didn't choose a Cain. She chose a well-behaved boy. Meanwhile, the strong man, the one who unsettles her, forces her to reflect, makes her confront her weakest parts, is the one she finds hard to love, not because he lacks something to give, but because she cannot control how he gives it. And in the emotional arena, control is often what women seek most, even if it means turning away from the very man they once admired the most. 8. The great man is not rejected for his weakness, but for his strength, because he demands that the woman beside him also grows, and most don't want that. When a man is rejected, people often assume he wasn't good enough, not rich enough, not handsome enough, not smart enough. But the brutal truth is, great men are not rejected because they lack something, but because they are too much, too strong, too focused, too emotionally independent, and that demands the woman beside him to also grow, to become self-reliant, to take responsibility for herself, to let go of the illusion that love alone will mend every crack within. The great man does not chase anyone. He does not need to be healed by someone else. He heals himself. He lives for a mission beyond affection, and that makes most women feel insufficient, feel lost, because beside him, she cannot just sit there and be loved. She has to run alongside, fight alongside, build alongside, and here lies a truth few dare to speak. Most women are not ready for that. They want a strong man, but only strong enough to make them feel safe, no more. They want him to have a vision, but still reply to messages on time. They want him to have a mission, as long as that mission doesn't interfere with the attention given to them. They don't want a mountain. They want a hill, easy to climb, easy to stand on, easy to rest upon. That is why the great man is not chosen, not because he lacks value, but because his value is too large, so large that it requires the woman beside him to surpass her own small self, to be worthy of walking alongside. And in today's world, where emotions are more easily wounded than held accountable, that price feels too high for most. He is not left behind because he is not good enough, but because beside him, she must become the better version of herself. And not everyone is willing to pay that price. 9. In the end, the great man is not loved. He is revered after death or forgotten if he stops. Here's the bitter truth. The great man is rarely truly loved while he is alive, while he walks his path. With all his focus, passion, and sacrifice, he is misunderstood, judged, even ostracized. But when he falls, when he leaves this world, suddenly, he is revered, praised, immortalized in statues, written about in books, because only then do people dare to admit what he built, what he sacrificed. Napoleon is a perfect example. While alive, he was seen as a dictator, a destroyer, a warmonger. But after his death, he became a symbol of iron will, of relentless leadership. People now celebrate his victories, speak of his visionary mind, but they forget that while he lived, even those closest to him betrayed him. Josephine, the woman he loved fiercely, turned her back on him. His army, once sworn to loyalty, abandoned him when tides turned. That is the fate of the great man. While alive, he is a threat. When dead, he becomes a legend. And if he chooses to abandon his mission, if he stops walking, he is not loved anymore for it. He is forgotten. A great man cannot retire from his path. If he stops, the world will quickly replace him with a gentler, safer, more controllable model. Thus, the price of greatness is not just loneliness while alive, but being loved too late, when all feelings have cooled, when all misunderstandings have become distant memories. The great man knows this. Either he keeps walking, facing loneliness, or he stops and is forgotten. There is no middle ground. There is no simple happiness for those born to change the world. And in the end, the choice is still yours. You can choose comfort, fitting in, being loved the way most men choose, through compromise, by bending yourself to fit the expectations of others. But if there is a fire within you, if there is a longing to walk a path that few dare to tread, then understand this: it is a lonely road. It is a road where love does not always accompany you. Great men, they are not truly loved while they are alive. They are honored only after they've fallen, when their story comes to an end, when their sacrifices no longer threaten anyone. But until that day, they walk alone, not because they want to, but because the world does not have the courage to walk beside them. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, do you want to be loved right now, or be revered forever? The answer isn't easy to hear, but it will define your life.